Cool. We got some folks. So hello everybody. Welcome to HeartMind Happy Hour. I am so excited to be here today. It's been a few weeks since I did one of these shows and I'm really excited to be back, and I've got actually a number of shows lined up for the next month. So I'm kind of back to doing this. I'm very excited. I am Holly Copeland, human potential and meditation coach, and co-founder of HeartMind Alchemy Lab. And this show and HeartMind Alchemy Lab is a place where we interview folks to unite ancient wisdom and modern science, and with topics on consciousness, meditation, neurofeedback, devices, all kinds of things in that realm. And I'm very excited today to welcome somebody who is, I think, really, there's a big community that's excited to hear from you, Moha. This is Moha Bensofia, the CEO of Mendy. And Mendy is a neurofeedback headset from Sweden. And it uses FNIR's technology to improve brain health and mental well-being. And as you guys know, most neurofeedback technology uses EEG, so is brainwave based, but Mendy uses FNIRs, so it's a little bit different. And there's some really exciting, I think, reasons why this technology has so much promise and has already been shown to be super impactful for people's lives. And so I'm really excited to have Moha here to tell us more about Mendy and talk about it. And yeah, welcome Moha to HeartMind Alchemy Lab.
So great to be here.
It is so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And
Moha's way, can I see the people that are on? Like, can we see that? Is there a way to see that? No way.
No, unfortunately, there's not. Right. So just know that we've got a number of folks on now watching. So they're here, and I can watch and see their comments. So I see Randy here and Carlton here. And if you folks post questions at the end, I'll look and try to get to them for Moha, anything we don't cover.
Is that our Randy? Is that Knudsen that we were just talking about, the
Jedi? It is Jedi Randy.
Jedi Randy.
Yeah, so... Well, and Moha's super kind tonight too. He's in Europe, and it's 1 a.m. where he is. So thank you for making arrangements to be on here at such a late time.
I am very happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, I think a wonderful place to start is just to tell us a little bit of your story and how you ended up at Mendy, because it's a very interesting story. It's not a typical journey that you've taken. And so I think folks will be really interested to hear how you landed at a neurofeedback technology company.
So I think the best way to describe how I ended up at Mendy is that I slipped on a banana peel and I landed on one of the founders. Bottom line is, when I got to Sweden in 2014, my first job was with a company called Fishbrain, which is a fishing app that I helped scale. And while working at this company, Fishbrain, I met one of the founders of Mendy at an after work. His name is Sammy. So the two founders of Mendy are two engineers, right? At that point, there's no such thing as Mendy. Nobody's talking about neurofeedback. I never heard about the word, right? But I meet this guy at an after work. He probably had like a sip of beer with me or something. He added me on Facebook Messenger. Then about 5.5 years later, he starts messaging me and he goes, "Hey Moha, I need you to come see this thing that me and my partner have built. I need you to come see this thing that me and my co-founder have built and all this." And, after he harassed me enough times, I eventually, I wrote him, I'm at the WeWork in Stockholm, and you've got 15 minutes and come pitch me whatever it is that you need to pitch me, right? At that point, he knew I was like invested in a lot of companies and I had like made a little bit of a name for myself. And so he actually comes up to me and he brings me this, like an older version of a Mendy, like a prototype. And he's like, "Hey, there's this thing called neurofeedback, and it's been used, for decades by millions of people, and it helps people with their," and he starts naming all these conditions, like it helps with their anxiety and sleep and, depression and ADHD and PTSD. I suffer from a few of these things. I've got, PTSD from war, and there's a lot of stories, a lot of things we can talk about, but ADHD. I've always had a lot of anxiety, especially since I was very little. And so he comes up to me and I'm like, it really sounds like snake oil, but on the off chance that part of this is true, this is like huge. Like I could I could tell this was a huge thing. And I get this, this wasn't the prototype that he gave me. This is a real Mendy that thousands of people are getting every week now, paying customers. But so he gives me this older prototype, and he's like, yeah, so this thing, blah, 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 it does this, and it reads your blah, blah, blah. And I didn't understand anything because I've never heard about neurofeedback at this point, right? I'm just a Costa Rican guy sitting there listening to this guy go on about this thing that I didn't know that sounded pretty magical and sounded like BS, right? And, but I look at it now, it looked really well built. And that's when the common sense kicked in. And I said to him, okay, I want to try this. I do a session. It's kind of like an aha moment, like a mind-boggling thing. The first time that you see your neural activity, you're visualizing what's happening in your brain. You're trying to control a game with your brain. That was a cool moment. So I was like, okay, at the least, this is a cool thing. This is like a cool gimmick. And I say to him, as this is so well built and this thing, I think it works, who has financed it? Like, to me, that was like literally the $1 million question. Like, you don't seem to have a lot of money. You're this little broke founder, and your partner doesn't seem to be like this, like it is another broke engineer. How have you guys financed this? And he goes, well, we've gotten money from the Swedish Innovation Agency and from the EU and all this. And he starts telling me about all this soft money that they've gotten and all this stuff that all these grants that they've gotten and all this. And that's when it lit up in my brain, like, okay, the due diligence has been done. And on the off chance, and I said this to him literally that day, on the off chance that 90% of what he said to me was bullshit, this was going to be the best investment I've made. And I invested on the spot. So I became Mendy's investor, wow, literally knowing nothing about neurofeedback. Wow. Never having never meditated in my life, literally just being a caveman that landed there. I was like, all right, this seems like a big thing. Definitely worth a gamble. You have to understand, I own esports teams. I'm invested in companies such as all sorts of stuff, like literally different verticals, like a ton of different stuff, like everything from like the biggest blood testing company in the Nordics to all sorts of random things, and that it's been an exciting journey. But to me, that was like, if any of this is true, this is huge. This is game changing, right? But that's when the exciting part started, because I take that device, that prototype, way earlier than this one, and I go home and I start using Mendy, and I start, you've got that excitement, you've got this thing, and you want to play with it, and you want to tell everybody about it, and you're doing it, and you're trying to control it, and you're trying to get better at it. Holly, within 3 weeks, everybody around me starts telling me, you're different. It's you, but you're better. Like, it's you, but you're more present. It's you, but you're more together. I had an ex-girlfriend I'd had a bad breakup with, and she's telling me, like, who is this guy? This is like the dream you. And all of a sudden I'm like, shit, everybody's telling me the same thing. This must be the Mendy, because I've changed nothing else. Literally, I've lived my life the same way for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So like, I always fast, I do a lot of things, but I also can't focus. Like, I can't even watch a movie, like, let alone ever read a book, for example, because I'm all over the place. And it's like, I read 3 pages and I'm like, who is this Holly person? And I have to go back and reread, and it's a nightmare, right? And I remember at week number 5, I believe it was week number 5, I ended up calling one of my best friends, who happens to be the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the world. And I go, dude, I just read a whole fucking book. Sorry for the swearing. Oh, no. And I'm like, my focus, like, at this point, I'm not even a believer. Like, I am like that annoying evangelist that's just like obsessed with this. But I'm just an investor for Mendy, and I'm just getting so into it that I've literally opened up my apartment, and the founders and the team would literally come and they would hang out at my place, because it was so much nicer than the little office that they had where they were doing all their stuff. And that's how I got involved with Mendy. So it's very much, they found me, and I was just there. I take no credit for anything.
It's a really cool, fun story. I love I slipped on a banana, and now I'm CEO of Mendy.
Landed on Sammy.
Landed on Sammy. It kind of sounds like that. And so I'm just curious, just a little more probing into your personal story. Everybody else was noticing a difference. You finished a book. What did it feel like to
the most important thing for me was like the anxiety and the emotional regulation. Like it was like I just felt happier. I couldn't explain it, but I just felt really good. I spend a ton of time talking to users, like even before we started shipping. Now we're shipping hundreds of devices per day, right? We've got thousands of pre-orders and people that are getting their devices and people are using it. And I see kind of like the same patterns of when I started using Mendy, where right now we know that our average Mendy user is using more than 5 times a week, wow, which is remarkable, right? Yeah. But it's like, now I do 3 sessions per week. So I do, bottom line is, so I started noticing these things and that, one of the first things that I noticed was that my anxiety was dramatically better. Like I just didn't feel anxiety. I just felt so much better. One thing I do remember was, and I thought it was like a little, it was at least cool, maybe even a little spooky, is that the first time that I did a Mendy session, I remembered my dreams very clearly for the first time. So I don't know if you've heard this in neurofeedback or whatever. I am not an expert. This is the fun thing about this, is that I am very clear in that I am not a scientist. I am not an expert, yep, but I am also very clear in that I want to be the most transparent CEO in the world. Literally, like I am obsessed with finding the truth, and I am obsessed with not exaggerating anything, but just saying, this is what we know, this is what we have. Let's learn together. Let's work together. And I think you've sensed that approach in the times that we've spoken.
Yeah, I definitely have. You seem, and I hope to probe into this more when we talk about the company and your approach, but I really feel that, like, your genuineness about this company and helping people and helping people's lives is so, you feel so authentic. It's so obvious that you're not in this to make money. That's not your goal. Your goal is like happier people all over the world, as many as possible.
I appreciate that. So one of the companies that I'm involved in a lot of different companies. You could, like, some of them like really, really cool stuff. I just happen to be the guy that kind of like goes into these companies that much smarter people have built. And then I end up like becoming a part of them. And I'm very grateful to be in Sweden, to be in like this hotbed for incredible innovation and incredible products. But one of the companies that I had been with, I actually sold it. I exited it. That's the company that does, which is the company that does it's the biggest private blood testing company in the Nordics. And it served a purpose because it's one of those companies that would basically give you accurate measures to tell you, hey, you're on your way to getting diabetes, and it would really change people's behavior and stuff. So it was something that I bought in. But the reason why I joined that company and the reason why I became an owner in that project specifically, I'm involved in over 30 projects passively, was because the chairman of the board said to me, he's a guy, fantastic human being. He's a guy with Crohn's disease. And he had, I don't know exactly how much, but a large percentage of his intestines cut out. And we sat down the first time that we met, when he was like trying to recruit me or whatever, like get me interested in his company. And he said to me, man, if this company would have existed 25 years ago, I would have had a much better life.
Wow.
And then I had that moment when with Mendy, when I saw me in my 40s, the improvement that I had, yep, I was like, shit, I can't let people wait 40 plus years for this to be accessible. This technology has existed. The reason that nobody has done it is because this technology has never been meant for everybody. It's been meant for whoever has the means to pay for it. And for me, it goes a little bit further. If we talk about like where I see this going in the future and like what my dream is, you're going to see it sounds a little bit radical, but to me, it was always about that single mom with 4 kids and 2 of them have issues and blah, blah, blah. And she's struggling to pay the bills and is stressed out of her fucking mind. does that person really have the bandwidth to get in their car and drive an hour and pay for 30 neurofeedback sessions? And, you know, like at that point I had bought into like, hey, neurofeedback is a real thing, right? And there's a lot of cool stuff, and I can give you a lot of the you know, we work with like Lawrence Silbert from Princeton University, and I was talking to some people at Harvard that are doing all this research with neurofeedback, and you know, we collaborate. We are research partners with NASA, and there's a lot of really cool things if you want to dig into like the science and talk about all these cool things. We've got hospitals using Mendy, and that's a big deal. But for me, it's about if there's something that's this good, that's this impactful to people's lives, people that have real struggles, real everyday struggles, and we're not doing everything to be able to give it to each and every single one of them, regardless of if they have a dime or not. That's just a shit world that I just don't like. And if I can go in and change that, I'm going to push for that.
Yeah. So much of what you said, I want to follow up on, and you know, like the science for sure. The science is super impressive, and the partners are impressive. You know, Princeton, Stanford, NASA. And you know so we'll do that for sure. But like what you're saying about, you know, the single mom with 4 kids, you know, who doesn't have time to take off of work, you know, to go to a clinic 30 minutes away, and the cost in that. And when you think about the cost of Mendy, you know, about $300 roughly in the scope of medicine, that's nothing. I mean, that's nothing compared to the amounts that are spent on pharmaceuticals, that are spent in clinics for the impact of, you know, potential of a device like this.
It's actually, it is something. And you know, if you want to go into my crazy dreams, like I eventually, you know, I see in the very near future a world where people don't even have to pay those $300. But I will tell you, the issue with most companies, and I think there's a lot of good intention out there, but the issue is that a lot of these companies that are treating, you know, that are managing our brain health, our mental health, our mental well-being, our physical health, everything, what they care about is something called lifetime value. They really don't want you to get better. They want you to be hooked for life. And that is an issue. And I'm not one of those people that says this company's bad or that company's bad. Or you could literally hang out with me for 1,000 days and not hear me say a single bad word about anybody. Like it's just not in my nature. And I'm not one of those people that demonizes like the pharma industry is horrible, or like the healthcare, like that's not me. But what I will tell you is that what we do know is that we have something that clearly helps people. Does it help everybody? Does it, like, there's a lot of things that are still there that we need to research, that we need to study, but I will tell you, it helped me. There is, and you said we're going to go into the research and all that, but what I'm saying is, if that helped me, if that helps that single mother be able to cope with her stress, be able to have a better life, be able to not, you know, that can be the difference between her beating her kids to death and having a normal life. Like, it's, why would we not do every single thing that we can to afford it to them? And the whole principle behind Mendy basically is to give access. We want to be the least exclusive company in the world.
Yeah, that's a beautiful goal, and I really appreciate it, and I hear the authenticity of that vision. And what a world would that be if we democratized this type of healthcare for everyone, to make people's lives better. Yeah. And I do want to quickly comment on something you said a little while back, but you commented on how Mendy helped your dreams. And among the things
I would love to hear from you, because I've never really liked that.
I'm super interested because I lead dream workshop. I have a dream workshop that I co-lead with some friends, Kiefer O'Sullivan and Stephen Altair. And so we practice lucid dreaming and teach people in lucid dreaming, you know, being that when you're in your dream and you know you're dreaming, and learning to control your dreams. And the beginning of that is just learning to remember your dreams. And we know that it's really tied to the prefrontal cortex. So it's very interesting for you to say, oh, I started using this and I actually could remember my dreams. And so I will be very curious when I start using it, which hopefully I'll have a device in a week or two and start posting about it to see if my dream recall increases, because I pay attention to that quite, recording my dreams every night. So,
well, this is something that we don't talk about a lot. It's something that I really haven't mentioned. I think maybe a couple of times I've mentioned it, but it just popped into my mind now. And it was, I remember, like one of those things where it's like, wow, this is trippy. Like something's happening. Like, I remember it's like, to you, it's like, it's a really, really cool thing. I would really be interested to, outside of this call, kind of talk about that with you, because it's, it was one of those aha moments for me.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's do a TBD on that conversation for sure. And there's other people in this community who track their dreams and pay attention to that. It's that altered state of consciousness, kind of rabbit hole that we could go down, which we won't, but yeah, to be continued. I'm super interested in that. Okay, so let's roll back just a little bit, because we haven't even said exactly what is Mendy and how is it different from conventional neurofeedback. You mentioned, the FNIRS, or I don't even know if you did, but let's just start there to describe it and how the technology works.
So Mendy is not just the headset, right? What the headset is a tool so that you can visualize and control your brain activity, right? So what this does is, it uses FNIRS, which is functional near infrared spectroscopy, which is a very good way of measuring brain activity. And what we have it paired with a game that you control, and there's different games. We make games that you control with your brain that reward you for increasing oxygenated blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, which obviously makes your brain healthier. And this is basically the basic premise of Mendy, is that you play these training games and you build those neural pathways and you strengthen your brain. And you use elements such as self-efficacy, for example, and all these other elements of you have neuroscience and behavioral psychology and all these things to build resilience in your brain, which is going to lead to a better life, obviously. And yes, and it is focused on the prefrontal cortex. And it's a device that you can use very, very, very easily. There's no electrodes, there's no gel, there's no nothing. It's very simple. The FNIRS comes from the family of the fMRI. You could say it's like a poor man's fMRI, which is the holy grail in measurement. So that is, that's what we're working with.
Okay, great. So I think you explained that pretty clearly. And so increase in oxygenated blood flow in the prefrontal cortex is associated with a number of things and well understood, right? Like ADHD, ADD, stress and anxiety, depression, all kind of can be traced to some difference in blood flow in the prefrontal cortex. Is that right?
100%. And this is why, for example, to me, with no knowledge of any of this, I didn't know this, obviously, when I came into that meeting with Sammy. That's why it sounded like snake oil to me. It's like saying, yeah, I have this little device that will wash your car and reduce your electricity bills, and it will, it just sounded too good to be true. But if you think about it, and if you understand how the PFC works, you would understand that everything is just correlated. Everything is connected. And that is why it makes sense that, yeah, people say that they're happier. I spoke to 35 out of 35 people over the past few weeks, said either they felt more content or happier. Of course, there's those that say, oh, I feel so happy because I've gotten the best sleep that I've gotten in years. And there's those that'll say that like the lady that works at a department store, and she's like, yeah, like I have people come in that are just horrible, and I'm like so chill. Like I cannot be bothered. Like I'm just happy. Like I don't even know what it is. But and you've also got the people saying, I'm so happy because my daughter isn't having panic attacks anymore. So there's always those things, but bottom line is that's because the prefrontal cortex serves the function that it does.
Yeah. So it's I don't know to what degree you are able to speak to this, but it's stress and anxiety at some level and various things that happen to us, concussions and being distracted, all tend to decrease blood flow in that region of the brain. And this is just teaching your brain how to bring back that oxygenated blood flow, right?
It's so cool that you mentioned that, and I'm going to go off topic, and I do that a lot, by the way. But it's when you talk about concussions and you talk about all these kinds of things, like I've had discussions with members of the NFL, with of the Bundesliga, which is the German soccer league, where all the big clubs are, with UFC fighters. So it's that whole area of just making sure that the brain is at its sharpest is a very, very big thing for those kinds of sports, where there would be basically two things, like obviously trauma, whatever, but also that there could be the risk of like not having optimal health could lead to a very big problem.
Yeah.
But it's it's very simple though.
Great. And so just going in a little bit, so one of the things about Mendy is the science that you're attracting, the Princeton, Stanford, NASA. Can you speak a little bit more to some of that science? And
so for example, so after we launched on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, we had very successful campaigns. One of the things that people don't notice is that I brought down marketing spend. Like I basically eliminated marketing spend, and the focus was put. You have to understand that we had a first-time CEO that knew nothing about this. And Kickstarter was fantastic because people would be like splattering like, oh, this is a scam, this is bullshit. So my reply to that was like, awesome. I would write them, hi, my name is Moha, this is my phone number. And that's why so many people have my phone number, which is still the same number that I use, right? And bottom line is, what that did is it would give us access to those opinions that would make us be able to learn. It's all about learning. And that led us to do things like, for example, adopting open science, right? As far as research and, for us, it's all about data, it's all about research, and it's all about, evidence level, color coding evidence levels, et cetera. We've had, it's been put forth for publishing. We've done a study with Leonard Hogman validating the signal quality and comparing the measurement capabilities of what we have. He's a senior, PhD senior researcher at Stockholm University, et cetera. We are constantly doing research. We're doing research as we speak with NASA. We're going to be conducting different research the whole time. But I have learned over the past few months that unfortunately research a lot of times gets done for the sake of research. A lot of times science is for the sake of science. It's an elitist kind of thing. Science is not made to help that single mom with the 4 kids. That's not who they have in mind when they're doing the science. It's basically a status thing. I've published 73 things, and which to me as a normal non-scientist, I really couldn't give 2 shits about that, right? But to me, it's about making things tangible and about accelerating those solutions for the people that they need them. And for us, it's about the data that we collect, and it's about, we've got thousands of users coming in, and they're reporting everything. And what we're doing is we're just transparently, without manipulating anything, we're just presenting everything, and we're learning from everything, and we're building those cohorts, and we're making assumptions, and we're doing research on parallel. So we're doing a lot of different things at the same time. For those that don't understand what open science is that a lot of times science is prostituted. Research is completely prostituted, right? Research is manipulated so that you get the result that you're looking for. I would never go into research saying, hey, make sure that, to prove that Mendy works better than X, Y, Z, or that it does this. No, that is not ethical. And for us, that's really what it is. But when we talk about research, of course, we've got Princeton and we've got these amazing people coming in, and there's naysayers, and they're welcome to come in. And I had a journalist tell me, like, what do you say to people that say that this is absolute bullshit? I would say, you know, let's get them live like you're doing right now, and let's get them on, and let's all talk. Yeah. It's like, there's absolutely nothing to hide. That's the beauty of you doing what you're doing, Holly, is that you don't have this hidden agenda where you've got this bullshit lie that you need to keep repeating to yourself. That's why I can come out with no script without being prepared, basically, because by the way, it's almost 2 in the morning. It's 1:32 in the morning where I am. And it's just like, it's not a problem, because like, there's no way to not perform. It's like, you tell the truth, there's really nothing to worry about, right? And for us, it's about building robust data. What we're doing has never been done, and doing it in the way that we're doing it is pretty unique. Again, I take no credit for it. You know, Rickard and Sammy built something amazing. Their stories are very compelling as well. So, I mean, Sammy started the company because he got burned out. You know, he was living that startup life, which is common in Stockholm, and he was just go, 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 go. And one day he just woke up and he didn't have, you know, the will to live. Like, this guy didn't want to get out of bed, you know, he was completely dead, you know. And what he did is he started to do nothing. He went from doing everything to doing nothing. And that's how he found his way towards, and he tells the story better, obviously, but that's how he found meditation. And he got really into meditation. And then he started looking at, well, what's the next thing? And he's doing like these, you know, these like these retreats, and he's doing all this stuff that to me is a little cuckoo, you know, and all of a sudden he's like, well, what's more powerful? And you know, he went to the US and he paid a ton of money and he did all these neurofeedback sessions. And he's like, I just felt so much better. Like, my life was so much better. I was like, and it's that thing that once you experience it, you're like, shit, like this, why doesn't everybody have this? And then what he did is he ended up, you know, buying the equipment, which is super costly, which is another problem. You know, it's like, you've got this amazing equipment that you are very familiar with, that you use, but it's too costly. That lady with the 4 kids, she's never going to be able to afford it. And eventually what he did is he started treating people. He's like, I'm going to help people just like I was helped. I have access to this. And he set that up. And then he met his co-founder, Rickard, who's another engineer from KTH, which is the big engineering school in Stockholm. And he walks in, and this guy went there because a colleague of his, another engineer, who are the most skeptical people, these specifically super skeptical people, is a guy that always suffered from migraines. I think his name is Thor, his friend. That's actually a name in Sweden, right? And, you know, he comes in, he's like, what happened to your migraines? He's like, well, I've been doing this thing called neurofeedback, and I don't have migraines. Like, I do the neurofeedback, the migraines are gone. He's like, wow, that's, you know, that's amazing. So he goes to Sammy's clinic, and that's how the 2 founders meet. And he's like, well, you know what? Like, we could treat people, you know, 10 per week, or we could literally build a company where everybody in the world could eventually have this. Yeah. And that's kind of like how they started years before reaching out to me. Early 2018.
It's just such a heartwarming, I mean, such a touching story. And the vision of everybody in the world having access to this, you know, which, as you point out, neurofeedback's been around for decades, right? But it hasn't become, you know, super mainstream. It's not the thing that, you know, every household is doing, as you pointed out yourself. You know, you came into the company, you never heard of it, right? So it's still pretty, you know, unique.
We're doing our best to accelerate that, to speed that up dramatically. You know, the second biggest hospital in Europe and the biggest in Sweden, which is called Sahlgrenska, is using Mendy.
Really? No kidding.
Proper hospital. We're not even talking neurofeedback clinic. We're not talking neurofeedback practitioner, which is all great, by the way. But this is actual hospital government, Sahlgrenska. You can Google it. The largest hospital in Belgium is going to start implementing it in their emergency ward.
Wow.
So basically, and we're talking about in their staff, you know, where Sahlgrenska in Sweden is doing it, staff and patients. And they're seeing amazing results. Like, we're getting all that feedback, and it's uncensored. It's unfiltered. It's no bullshit. My approach is absolutely no bullshit. Like, we don't want to put makeup on the research. We don't want to say, all right, you're going to do a study with 100 people, but, you know, these 15 it didn't work on, so take them out of the study and continue with the 85. You know, that's how science works, right? And then in the end, you give the statistic, 63%, but you know that's not how it is, because there's some stuff along the lines that you didn't do. You paid some people and you eliminated some people and you mixed and matched. Like, that's not how it is. The transparency is very black and white. It's 0 or 100%. Like, I am very much a radical when I talk about these kinds of things. Like, there's no middle points.
So one of the other things that strikes me, it feels like Mendy is more powerful in some respects than traditional EEG neurofeedback, or quicker, because I mean, I'm familiar with neurofeedback, and typically we talk about, 40 days for people to see improvements, 40 to 60 days. And even yourself are talking about, 3 weeks. And I'm just, in terms of the FNIRS and EEG, do you think there's something there about FNIRS that's just a more powerful neurofeedback technology?
I will tell you, Holly, the 3-week mark is not like something that I made up. Like, it's a constant that we see. It's not always, and there's obviously things vary, but I see it very often, the 3-week mark. As a matter of fact, our early cohorts, it's so exciting to dig into the data. I'd love for you to talk to our CPO, who's unbelievable, and for him to show you dashboards and show you stuff. We're all,
let's get him on the show. I'd love it.
We're all geeking out on that. He's the coolest. Like, we just love this stuff. What we had, the early cohorts from the first, I think, couple thousand people using Mendy for over 10 sessions, so 10 sessions or more, 70% of them, that's 70, reported improvements in subjective and objective measures. So objective measures is their ability to control the saturation of oxygenated blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, blah, blah, hypoperfusion, blah, blah, all these parameters, very simple, very objective, black and white numbers. And the subjective measures, which to me, in my opinion, me as Moha, the Costa Rican bald guy, are equally or more important, that's just a personal opinion, is I feel better. Yeah. My life is better. I'm happier. I had a journalist kind of like nail me on that, because I said something that was like criticized, which, because she kept pushing me on, like, yeah, well, like, what if this percentage is placebo? What is percentage? You know what I said to her? I said, you know what? If I have a product that makes me feel better, I honestly don't give a shit what it is that it's doing. I'm just happy that I'm better. Like, me, that's just my personal opinion. That's not Mendy. That's Moha. That's the middle-aged bald guy. That's my personal opinion. And I stand by it. Like, that doesn't mean that that's all it is. It's all, subjective, placebo. There's objective and subjective measures. 70%, that is unbelievable. That is game-changing. Holly, I'll tell you, if it was 20%, that's game-changing.
Right.
But 70,
right.
I think you can understand why we're so optimistic. Now, if I'm going to say that it's better than anything else, the way that we measure, we believe, and the reason why we have opted for using FNIRS is it's the most accurate way of measuring. So that is the reason why we do that. It would be very easy for me to sit here and say, so-and-so company does this, that company, we're better than this company that way. That I would never do that. As a whole, without mentioning names, and by the way, if you want to ask me about any company specifically, you can. I mean, I'll answer anything. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. And if I can tell, I can send you the answer tomorrow. And we have an updated science section on the website that should have been updated today that you can check. And that obviously keeps iterating all the time. But what I will tell you is that whether it's EEG or any type of methodology or any company or any of these like meditating apps or whatever, I believe that in the end, I want to believe that in the end, all these companies really have the intention of helping people. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a use for all these companies. So I would never say, no, this is shit, this doesn't work, or that is, I believe that there is a purpose and there is a place for all these different types of technologies. Of course, some will be better than others. For me, it's about speed of innovation. It's about accuracy, and it's about not being closed-minded in we're the best and this is the only way, you know. And that's the beauty of what we're doing. You know, there was quite a large delay in our deliveries that were done just based on the fact that I am this stubborn and this dumb. And it's because, Holly, as you know better than I do, and Randy and people that are way more knowledgeable than I am would understand, is that we realize that there is a better way to build it if we can actually connect a heart rate variability monitor, which we have input, which we had not activated. That's going to help us input a lot more things and be able to give that person that's trying to improve their lives or the life of their daughter a much better product. But that took from the 3 sensor device that I had promised we were going to ship on Kickstarter, by the way, which I was on that Kickstarter video knowing nothing. I just come in and told my story, right? I learned a lot in the weeks and months after that. You know, at some point I realized, I sat down after speaking to all these neuroscientists, and all of a sudden I mean, you have to understand that I go from being this, you know, the opposite of a scientist, to sitting down and I'm having conversations with NASA. Like, to me, it was literally like, it's hilarious. Like, to me, it's literally like, it's so funny, right? I'm sitting there surrounded by neuroscientists, and I like, if you're going to talk about getting a complex about not fitting in, but I'm just like laughing it off because I'm not pretending to fit in, right? But one thing I realized is that I would prefer to build a better product and ship it with a slight delay than basically screw people and tell them in 6 months, hey, by the way, there's something better. I want to sell you another device. A lot of companies, that's their business model. That's not our business model. That's why for us, making the hardware very durable was so important. Because instead of saying, hey, there's 5 family members, let's sell them 5 Mendys, to me, it was very clear that there's 5 family members. We need to sell them a Mendy that 5 people can use, and their neighbors and their kids. Yeah. We're not trying to sell more devices. That is a differentiating thing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to impact lives. And we have a very clear goal. 10 million lives improved. That's the KPI within 5 years. Of course, you know, that's not where it ends. Because once we have proven that, once we have those cohorts, once we have that data, yeah, onwards, then we want to help everybody, right?
Yeah. That's fantastic. And well, I think maybe what I'll do is, I had some questions, but they fluttered out of my mind. So I'm going to turn, I see a couple of questions from our community. So one is, what's the long-term report from users, like 6 months plus, and is there a plateau?
Well, actually, this data, you have to understand that we started shipping like 3 months ago. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be shipping 5,000 more devices. It's early days. I will tell you, I'm a user with a year and a half. I've had a lot of emotional regulation stuff, like anxiety. I used to be one of those people my whole life where I would just lose my shit. Like, I'd get stressed. Like, I would just go crazy. It's been a year and a half for me since August 2019, which is when I started using Mendy, until now. I am a different human being. The fact that I can work, and I'm not exaggerating, 100-hour weeks, which happens sadly more often than I would like to admit, to me is incredible. Like, I remember another one of the aha moments, because there's 1,000 of them, was one day where I'm literally sitting at my chair in my apartment in Stockholm, and I'm like, I've just worked like 14, 15, 16 hours straight. Like, it was unheard of for me, like the level of focus. I mean, we're not, in my case, and by the way, we need to quantify these things. Now I'm just throwing random numbers, right? But it's like, to me, it's not a 1% improvement or a 2% improvement, which is fantastic, by the way. That in itself can be life-changing. To me, it's literally the difference from night and day. Yeah. To be able to not sit down, I wouldn't be able to sit down and focus and write an email, to I'm sitting there literally for days on end. that is remarkable. So to answer that question, there's a lot for us to learn. But then again, there are millions of people that have used neurofeedback that swear by it, that say my insert condition has improved. With Mendy, it's early days. It's early days. I mean, we've started shipping devices in, about a few months ago, so it's, it's very, very, very promising. Bottom line is, just like you, Holly, you probably go to the gym, or you go do walks, you do your yoga, you do whatever it is. It's not like you did the splits, you're done. It's like, so that would be my answer to it. Like, you have to keep training. I train every day of my life. So I fast every day of my life, and I lift every day of my life. I'm in my 40s. I'm in better shape than most people. And to me, that it just makes sense, right? It's not like I have a six-pack, I'm done, so I'm gonna stop. I look at it kind of like the same way, right? So it's it's a question that, for myself personally, I don't think I'm gonna need to ever find out of what happens if I stop using Mendy for 5 years. I don't need that. Just like I don't need to say, like, oh, what happens if I don't lift for 5 years? I don't need to find that out, because I intend on lifting.
Yeah. And you yourself
I hope that answers the question. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, no, I think it did. And let's see. So another question I have is, and I'll go to a user question. So there's 3 sensors on Mendy, and there are different games. So are there different?
Plus an HRV. Plus HRV.
Okay.
So there's four sensors, right?
Oh, I didn't realize. So HRV is incorporated into the Mendy you're shipping.
Well, that was actually the main reason for the delay. So that was completely on me. So this is actually my Mendy. It's not like a demo Mendy. I traveled this weekend, and I bring it with me because I do my sessions, right? I do 15 minutes a week, and I still have to do my session for this weekend. But yeah, so the HRV is there because obviously there's a lot of value in that, and there's a big connection, and in the end, everything is connected. It's a holistic thing,
Completely. I love that you've got HRV incorporated in there. So that sets it aside from a lot of the other headsets. Some are starting to, but that's great. So do you target different conditions? So if somebody's doing training, is there just one focused training, or are there, like, let's say your depression, is there do you target different conditions and have different types of programs, or is it one program?
So there are, there's thousands of people using Mendy right now. You'll be one of them by the end of next week. Obviously, the people report different things. The main things that they report are improvements in focus, in mood, calmness, sleep. I would say that's probably the 4 biggest one, but obviously there's everything from addiction. Like, for the first time, like, literally, I'll give you an example of this is a real guy, fantastic guy. His name is Edvard Koenig. So Edvard Koenig and his wife, Sophie Koenig, they have this daughter. Like many teenagers, it sucks being a teenager these days. You've got so much noise. It's like your brain is just mush. It's being bombarded by notifications. And I think you were born in the 70s like me, Holly. So it's, it was a simpler life, and our parents probably had it even easier, but now it's like you've got, notifications and Snapchat and filters, and everybody's got perfect skin, and everybody's got the perfect boyfriend, and everybody's rich, everybody's flying private, of course, and everybody's like, it is so hard for them to lead a life where they feel adequate. And what you've got all these teenagers with these horrible panic attacks and all these things. And they had this case where, they just had a daughter that was having like these panic attacks and didn't, was struggling in school because of that. And this daughter starts using Mendy, and all of a sudden this kid is completely functional, happy, fantastic. So then the father and the mother are like, shit, like that's their aha moment. Like, wow, our life is exponentially better. All of a sudden he starts using Mendy, full stop, quits nicotine. The guy's been trying to quit smoking for 35 years. Plus, I don't know if you know this, but in Sweden, they have this really, really nasty habit, and most of them do it. They've got this thing called snus, which is a little pouch with like nicotine that they put on their gum on the inside. I tried it one time for like 30 seconds. It burns like, I like to think I'm a tough guy. That is not something I ever want to try again. Like, you feel like your teeth are just going to fall out. And this guy literally stopped snoozing. Like, it's insane. So obviously you've got people talking about like, yeah, addiction and this and that, but the main ones would be those 4 ones that I spoke about. Now, Mendy is not specifically built to treat conditions. Of course, we're building cohorts and we are implementing use cases as, subsequently as a result of those cohorts. For example, the sleep or the mood or the focus use case. But Mendy is intended for people like you and I, for quote unquote healthy people, right? Just like when you go to the gym, the lady, running on the treadmill next to you probably doesn't look like a contestant on The Biggest Loser. She's probably not 700 pounds. That's basically what we look at. Our main user would be what we call the stressed millennial, the urban warrior. But basically, it's just people that want a healthier brain, that want to deal with stress better, that want to be able to handle this increase in technology better, that want to be able to have that edge, want to be able to optimize, be able to. So yes and no.
Okay.
As of right now, it is not intended to treat conditions. No.
You're not targeting any of those conditions. Simply, you're just by virtue of it being out there and people trying it, people are finding improvements in these various, like, true, issues and conditions.
And it's all about data for us.
Yeah.
It's all about data. Data is everything to us.
Okay. And so I see Randy actually asked a question about, he said, I'm not currently accessing any HRV or different games. What am I missing?
It hasn't been activated.
Okay. Oh, it hasn't been activated.
What we're doing is we're releasing, I believe over the next 10 days, Randy will see, it's going to be milestone badges and those kinds of like retention things. Our retention numbers are absolute madness, by the way. These numbers, I can share like dashboards with you and stuff. And if you want to talk to the team, I'm saying it off the top of my mind at almost 2 in the morning. It's 1:55 in the morning right now. But it's something like after, I believe, month 2, people that are training is something like 83.9%, which is unheard of.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's unheard of. Like I am in tech. That is unheard of. Like it literally, when I heard it, I was like, excuse me, like I thought I heard it wrong. So our numbers are just, and it's the most basic version. It's the first version that we're launching, right? The HRV will be activated, but for us, it's about different stages and learning at different stages. So for us, it's about getting no noise, clear data, understanding, then taking the next step forward. There was the possibility, and we could have done it. And we're a company that has more resources than most. We have access to capital, and that's never really been a problem for us, and it really won't be a problem, for us. And but it was one of those things where we could have launched with 1,000 features. I've literally heard people be like, "Yeah, well, this device, or this toy, or this whatever does these 50,000 things." The beauty of Instagram is that it's just pictures. Like, to me, like I always say, like, one of the, like, simplicity is really the best thing. Like, that's the best way to get, we could have literally guessed and just thrown 10,000 features at once. We've got a superb tech team. We've got some of the best people in the world. Holly, like, I'd love for you to meet my team. They're unbelievable.
I would love that.
I just love them. Like, they're just amazing. I'm so grateful that they're on this journey with us. We have like incredibly senior people from way bigger companies with huge logos, like, you know, huge logos, and they jump ship and they take 75% pay cuts to come work with us because they believe in changing the world's brain health. And that's like fucking amazing.
That is amazing.
Amazing to me. And it's like this team of misfits, and we all have a connection to it. You know, the idiot CEO, like he's got his issues and his anxiety and his stuff, and he's obsessed with this. And we've got, Faye, who runs marketing for us. I mean, she had a couple of mini strokes, and that's what led her to say, you know what, I'm going to stop doing this fintech stuff where she's making a ton of money and it's this huge company and it looks super sexy, but it's like, is that my purpose in life? I want to go serve this purpose, and that's super exciting. So to answer Randy's question, because I know I go off tangent and I get super excited, yeah, the HRV has not been activated, but there's a ton of things that have still not been activated.
And so that's kind of, I think, a beautiful place to close it and let you go to sleep, is just kind of what's the vision for the future? Where are you headed? It is early days for the company, as you said. And with the team that you've got and the promise of Mendy, I just wonder, like, is there a Mendy that is a full, goes into the back, post-cingulate cortex part of the brain and accesses other parts for other types of training? I'm super curious.
Yeah, Mendy focuses on the PFC basically because of the importance of the PFC and because of the nature of the PFC. But it is also very simple in that it is basically, you just put it on. Like we flight attendants that use Mendy, and they'll literally just put it on like before a flight and do a quick session. There's nothing to do. There's no electrodes. You know how it is, cleaning. It's so easy. It's so smooth. We have some milestones that are, we're working towards building something that is going to be a middle point between an fMRI and an FNIRS device. And that is, going to come in the future. For us, it's about helping these first 10 million people. Of course, the amount of people that we want to help is with a B. If you're going to ask me again personally, this is not business model, yada, yada. Investors are probably watching this and all this, but if you ask me what my dream is that everybody in Africa has access to Mendy. They can't afford it, but I want them to have access to it. That my dreams are a little more out there. Maybe you and I sit down and talk about them, off the record. But my dream is that everybody that needs this has access to it, and that we learn, and that we build the best possible thing, so that this whole, Corona has really highlighted how destroyed we are, how bombarded our brains are, and how little capability we have to deal with the world that we're living in. It's like we woke up in 2021 and we're like, shit, we have this prehistoric brain that we don't, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give people like you and me a fighting chance. And it's a worthwhile cause.
It's a totally worthwhile cause. Your vision is so inspiring. I really, it just makes my heart skip 1,000 beats, because, just to see this beautiful mission that you have to, help all of Africa, to help people around the world, not motivated by profit, but motivated by how many people can we help?
That's the metric. It's lives improved.
That's the metric. And that's a company.
And I know that's a metric you care about as well. And I know that's a metric that Randy cares about as well. And I know that Sammy from your group, who's the one that introduced me to Randy, cares about that metric. And I think as long as there's a lot of us naive, crazy, delusional people out there, some really, really good things are going to happen over the next few years.
Yeah. Well, I have this. My experience in the world is that actually more people than not, that is what they care about, because that's the basis of humanity, right? Because within all of us is a good place. Every single person has love in their heart at the foundation of who they are. And yeah, sure, people, through various experiences get clouded from that, but that is the foundation of who we are. And so I have this incredible faith in humanity that, that's where we're headed. That is the truth. And so that's where we'll end up too. Yeah. And with technology like Mendy and others, that we will actually really start to change people's lives in really meaningful ways. And I'm just really grateful, super, super grateful for the work that you're doing and your amazing team. I got the chance to meet a few of them in our pre-interview, and it's so true. You have the coolest team.
On my balcony, yeah.
Yeah, you have an amazing team. So I would love to bring some of them on for, an interview or whatever. We can talk about what feels right. But
reach out to any of them directly. Like for me, I am obsessed with transparency. Just do as you wish. Like it's I'm just grateful to be a small part of this. And I literally, I thank you so much for doing this. And anything you need from me or from our team, let me know. And I'm really excited to start to hear your usage and your experiences with Mendy when you get it within a week or so.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to start using it. I've got an Aura ring that I've been tracking my sleep, so I'm curious, how's that going to change?
Super cool. Yeah, a lot of people are geeking out on tracking with their Aura ring and their Boot bands and all that. Yep. Before using Mendy and after using Mendy, and I think you're gonna like what you see.
Yeah, so I'll be curious for people in our community too to start sharing on that, tracking as well. And yeah. And so right now, I'll bet this may generate some real interest in Mendy. If folks want to get it, I put the link in the interview, but it's mendy.io, and you're shipping, but like there's a backlog, right? So if you go on and
backlog, yeah. So yeah, if you get it Mendy, you'll get it in August.
Okay.
That's when we will have caught up with the pre-orders. We are victims of our own success. But it's a pleasure talking to you, Holly. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, Moha. Thank you everybody in the community for watching. Thank you.
Hopefully I'll see you in Stockholm soon.
Yeah, I would love that. I feel like the future is hopping around, kind of working with folks on brain health. And so who knows, I would absolutely love that. So, all right, well, you stay on, Moha, and I'm gonna sign off from the Facebook. All right, goodbye, everybody. Have a great evening, morning, wherever you are. And I'll be back next Friday for another interview. More on that soon. All right, bye.